Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Arzu Gargi and I am a South Asian Research Associate for this research on defending and promoting democracy and civic spaces with SDGs. So before we move on to our presentation, let me first shed light upon the flow of this presentation. So in the course of presentation, I shall first be dealing with the overall implementation of SDGs in South Asia. Then I shall be moving on to explain the situation of pandemic and its impact on democracy and human rights overall. Then we'll be analyzing the situation of democracy and civic spaces in South Asia, followed by civil society's engagement on SDGs. So moving on with the presentation, the first topic that we have is overall implementation of Sustainable Development Goals in South Asia. As you can see in the presentation, this is the data taken from Sustainable Development Index, and this carries the data of 6 consecutive years from 2016 to 2021. So SDG Index assess each country's overall performance on the 17 SDGs. And we need to understand that the overall score of 0 signifies the worst possible outcome, whereas the overall score of 100 or near to 100 signifies the best or targeted outcome. So based on this data, if we are to see the situation of South Asia, we can see that the Bhutan stands as the top performing state country for 5 consecutive years, except for 2019, where Maldives overrode Bhutan by its inception. And on the other hand, Afghanistan stands as the worst performing state for 6 consecutive years, with the average score of 47.8 in 6 years, right? So if we are to see the overall situation of South Asia in terms of the implementation of 17 Sustainable Development Goals, it is safe to say that South Asia is doing pretty decent in terms of progressing towards its goals, with the average score of 50 plus overall. Now talking about the spillover effect, which is assessed along with the 3 dimensions, that is environmental and social, economic and finance and security dimension. It is seen that Pakistan is causing more positive spillover effect, whereas Maldives with a score of 88.26 is found to be causing more negative spillover effect in South Asia, among other states. Moving on with the SDG 5, 10, and 16, we can see that gender disparity and inequalities lie as 2 major and 2 common problems in South Asia. So if we are to see goal 5, that is gender equality, the situation of gender equality in South Asia, we have taken this data from Gender Gap Index. This holds the data of 2 consecutive years, which is released by World Economics Forum based on economic participation and opportunity, educational attainment, health and survival, and political empowerment of women. So based on this data, we can see that apart from Bangladesh, no other South Asian countries falls under top 100 countries with less gender inequality among 173 nations, right? And with the surge of COVID-19, this has become even worse, which is evidenced from the report of UN Women. This shows that the situation of Nepal and India, among other South Asian countries, is worse, as it has been facing the high rate of job loss and women-based violence. More than 90% of the women working in informal and home-based job are impacted by COVID-19 in Nepal and India. So all the South Asian countries are somehow facing this sort of problem because of the surge of COVID-19. However, Nepal and India are seen to be impacted even more based on which is evidenced from the situation of job loss and the increasing rate of women-based violence in Nepal and India. So this brings me down to goal 10, which is reducing inequalities, which again stands as another common problem in South Asia. And according to the Asian Development Bank, unequal distribution of wealth followed by lack of access to some basic services to the vulnerable groups lie as two chief problems that are causing the rise in inequalities in South Asia. And again, with the increasing rate of COVID-19, it is seen that there is the arisal of new form of inequalities in South Asia, that is vaccine inequality. So moving on to goal 16, which is one of the most important goals in the SDGs. Peace, justice, and strong institution. You can see this data which has been extracted from the STSN Index 2021's country report. This is based on the 11 indicators, as you can see in the data itself. Some of the indicators includes homicide, unsentenced detainees, property rights, press freedom index, person held in the prison, etc. You can see that most of the South Asian countries' situation is not that good. But if we are to see the overall situation of this SDG 16, we can say that Bhutan stands as the best performer in terms of the achievement of SDGs, as most of the goals, most of the indicators of SDG 16 are on track or are already achieved, or the major challenges in terms of those indicators are decreasing in Bhutan. So if we are to see the common problem, corruption stands as one of the major and one of the common problems in South Asia. It is evinced from this data that major challenges or significant challenges in terms of corruption are either stagnating or moderately improving in South Asia, except for Bhutan, where the corruption rate is on track. Right? So unavailability of the information is yet another problem in terms of analyzing, in terms of explaining this SDG situation of SDG 16 in South Asia. Apart from that, we can also say that human trafficking stands as a major and a common problem in South Asia, because not even one South Asian country stands at Tier 1, which signifies the country doing enough to combat human trafficking under the US Department of State's Trafficking in Person Report 2020, right? So in conclusion, or at the end of this topic, we can say that all the countries have a designated focal point to track the implementation of SDGs. For an example, there is Niti Aayog in India. There is National Planning Commission in Nepal. Bhutan has formed a new platform called Dewa platform to track the SDGs. This kind of focal points are available in all the countries, which has been mentioned in our report. These are just some examples. So if we are to see the overall situation of SDG, we can see that the countries are moving forward to achieve the SDGs, but full implementation of the SDGs is yet to be achieved. And with all the political turmoil, with all the political changes and Taliban's takeover that Afghanistan is going through, the attainment of Goal 16 has become more complex and more uncertain at this situation. So let's move on to our second topic, that is a third topic under SDG, that is UPR and SDGs. You can see this data of the which holds the percentage of the UPR recommendation received by South Asian countries, and from this data it is evinced that most of the SDGs recommendation, most of the UPR recommendation to the South Asian states are either in terms of SDG 16 or in terms of SDG 5, right? And the other common recommendations that South Asian countries have received relates to SDG 10, 8, and SDG 4. So if we are to see the common recommendations received by these South Asian countries, in terms of SDG 16, most of the South Asian countries have received have been recommended to ratify the optional protocol 2 of ICCPR and prohibit death penalty, except for Nepal, because Nepal has already ratified optional protocol 2 and has already prohibited death penalty under its constitution itself, right? South Asian countries have also been recommended to ratify the Rome Statute on International Criminal Court, except for Bangladesh, Bhutan, and Maldives, and has been recommended to combat human trafficking in terms of SDG 16. So in this, so similarly, if we are to see the recommendation received by South Asian countries in terms of SDG 5 and 10, that is gender equalities and reducing inequalities, South Asian countries have been recommended to ensure speedy justice, speedy investigation and justice in the cases of gender-based violence. They have been recommended to recognize the same-sex marriage and have also been recommended to eliminate all form of sexual and gender-based violence. In terms of SDGs, 4 South Asian countries have been recommended to ensure free and compulsory education, have been recommended to promote human rights education in the school curriculum, and have also been recommended to ensure disabilities-friendly education system. And finally, in terms of SDG 8, that is decent work and economic growth, the countries are recommended to ratify ILO Domestic Worker Convention 2011, have been recommended to ensure proper rehabilitation to the victims of human trafficking, and have been recommended to combat the child labor. So this brings me to our second topic, that is the COVID-19 pandemic, its situation and its impact on democracy overall. So you can see this is the data extracted from Worldometer, and this holds the data as of 14th October 2021. Based on this data, we can see that Maldives, with its 15.52% of the population already been affected, stands as the most affected countries in South Asia, whereas Bangladesh, with its 0.09% of its population being affected, stands as the least affected countries by COVID-19 in South Asia, right? If we had to see the recovery and the testing rates as of May 2021, India seems to be doing pretty decent in terms of testing, with the highest number of testing in South Asia, followed by Pakistan and Bangladesh, whereas the countries like Bhutan and Maldives has a very low rate of testing. And in terms of the recovery rate, again, India seems to be having the most or the largest amount of recovery rate, followed by Pakistan and Bangladesh, whereas countries like Bhutan, Nepal, Sri Lanka seems to have a lower recovery rate in terms of COVID-19 across South Asia, right? Moving on to the vaccination rate, you can see this data. Vaccination, the number of vaccination is highest in Bhutan, with 71% of its population already being vaccinated, whereas Bangladesh only has only 15.20% of Bangladesh population is vaccinated as of now, and the data for Afghanistan is not available as of now. So this data is extracted from the COVID-19 tracker. The link of the same has been mentioned in the table itself. This also shows the vaccination trend, whereby 64% of the Bhutanese population are completely or fully vaccinated, but 11% is yet to be fully vaccinated. They have only been partially vaccinated. And the lowest rate of vaccination is in Bangladesh, with 10% of its population being fully vaccinated, whereas 9.5% population of Bangladesh is only partially vaccinated. Now moving on with the comparative analysis, we can see that South Asia became a global epicenter for COVID-19 pandemic, and on May 6, 2021, India reported more than 400,000 new cases in one day, taking its total tally to confirmed cases, total tally of confirmed cases to 21.5 million. And the same because Nepal shares border with India. Nepal was also largely impacted by the outbreak of COVID-19 in India. With the beginning of the second wave, the daily cases in Nepal increased 30-fold from 303 cases per day to 9,317 cases per day between 12 April to 12 May 2021. And apart from that, Nepal also struggled a lot to find the alternative supplies of oxygen since India stopped exporting oxygen, and this problem was further strengthened, further worsened by the political situation, political turmoil faced by Nepal with Prime Minister, with the then Prime Minister having lost the vote of confidence and political parties failing to form a government when the pandemic was in its peak. From the data, we can see that the vaccination, the COVID rate, however, at this point is decreasing in all the South Asian states, which is a good thing, of course. And the most affected country, Maldives, lies as the most affected country, and this might arise a question. This might bring us to analyze what made Maldives to be so affected by COVID-19. And as for the experts, Mali, the capital city of Maldives, stands as the most affected region in Maldives, and this is supposedly because of the congested area or the area constraint in Maldives, followed by the highest number of migrant workers in Maldives. So these two regions are deemed to be the reason for Maldives being so affected by COVID-19. And if we are to see in the case of Bangladesh, which stands as the least affected countries in South Asia, the reason for the same is seen to be the rapid testing, collaboration with NGOs and private sector that Bangladesh has opted to, and progressively even the situation of refugee camp in Bangladesh was under control with the strict measures taken with the help of international community by Bangladesh. So as you can see, the vaccination rate is highest in Bhutan and lowest in Bangladesh, and data of Afghanistan is unavailable as of now. If it becomes available during the course of this research, we shall add the data of Afghanistan as well in our report. So moving on to analyze the impact of COVID-19 and democracy on human rights. This is the data taken from IDEA International, and this data is based on seven categories and 28 indicators, as you can see in the presentation. So based on this data, if we are to analyze the situation of democracy in South Asia, you can see the countries like Bangladesh, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India seems to be having a low performance in terms of representative governments, assurance of fundamental rights, freedom of expression, religion, persons' integrity and security, social rights and equality, checks on government, impartial administration, and local democracy. Right? However, the overall performance of South Asia seems to be on a mid-range, and the data for Bhutan and Maldives is not available as of now in this the data released by IDEA International. However, South Asia had a COVID-19 related democracy regression, which shall be explained in the upcoming slides as well. So moving on to our next slide, and explaining the situation of democracy and civic spaces in South Asia. You can see this data taken from EIU Democracy Index, and the Democracy Index is based on 5 categories, that is electoral process and pluralism, functioning of government, political participation, political culture, and civil liberties. And based on this data, none of the South Asian countries have been recognized as fully democratic country in last 5 years. Sadly, India being called as one of the largest democracy in the world, and Sri Lanka, even these two countries has been recognized as the countries with flawed democracy for last 5 years. And the countries including Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal, and Pakistan has been recognized as having hybrid regime since last 5 years. So in South Asia, the situation of democracy, the democracy is not full, rather it has been experiencing light and shadow democracy as of now. So moving on to our next slide and analyzing the situation of civic spaces, which also happens to be a bedrock for democratic society. You can see this data taken out from Civicus. All the South Asian countries are, in terms of civic spaces, the civic spaces in South Asian countries are either repressed or obstructed, as you can see from this data. So the government are using COVID-19 response to justify the authoritarian regime, undermining the democratic norms. Some government even claims that an authoritarian regime or authoritarian approach is the best way to defeat pandemic. And they have also resorted to strict top-down and tech-enabled approach as not only necessary but ideal for protection of health, public health, even at the cost of individuals' right. So as I've already mentioned that the civic spaces in South Asian countries are either repressed or obstructed. And this signifies three things. First, that the civic space in South Asia is contested by the power holders. Second, hurdle in the full enjoyment of the fundamental rights exists, and there is an existence of sense of fear of surveillance, harassment, and even death while criticizing the power holders. And in terms of Afghanistan, Afghanistan has recently been listed under the watch list by Civicus following the Taliban's takeover in Afghanistan. So this is the overall situation of democracy and civic spaces in South Asia. Moving on to analyze the situation of press freedom. This is the data taken out from RSF. So the Press Freedom Index, this analyzes the situation of media freedom based on pluralism, independence of the media, quality of the legislative framework, and safety of journalists in South Asia. The situation of press freedom in South Asia is either bad or problematic. As you can see that only Bhutan and Nepal have the problematic situation of press freedom. Apart from Nepal and Bhutan, all other countries have bad situation in terms of press freedom. And if we are to analyze this data, we can see that Bangladesh has the worst situation, whereas Afghanistan, before the Taliban's takeover, was considered to be one of the best among the worst in South Asia in terms of press freedom, and the best among the problematic is Bhutan in terms of the exercise of press freedom in South Asia. So this brings me down to our last topic, that is CSOs engagement in SDGs. In South Asia, we only have two major intergovernmental organizations that deals with the that enhances the regional cooperation in South Asia, that is SRG and BIMSTEC. ASEM is also there, but ASEM does not have majority South Asian representative in its as a member state. So we'll only be talking about SARC and BIMSTEC in our presentation. However, we shall be mentioning a little about ASEM in our report, which we shall be submitting at the end. So moving on, SARC has been founded in 8 December 1985. With the aim of promoting the welfare of the people of South Asia and improve the quality of life. It also aims to accelerate the economic growth and social progress, social and cultural progress, development in the region by providing all individuals the opportunity to live in the dignity and realize their full potential. On the other hand, BIMSTEC was founded in 6 June 1997 with the aim of creating or enabling environment for rapid economic development through identification and implementation of specific cooperation projects in the sector of trade, investment and industry, technology, human resources development, tourism, agriculture, energy and infrastructure, and transportation. As you can see that both of this intergovernmental organization, SARC as well as BIMSTEC, runs based on the principle of sovereign equality, territorial integrity, political independence, non-interference in internal affairs of the member state, and mutual benefits. So sharing the common principle, if we are to talk about the membership of Asia in these two organizations, all the South Asian countries are the member of SARC, including Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka, whereas only 5 countries of South Asia are members of BIMSTEC, including Bhutan, Nepal, Sri Lanka, India, and Bangladesh. Talking about the relationship of these organizations with UN, SARC has concluded a memorandum of understanding with United Nations Children Fund, UNICEF, also with United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. It has also concluded MOU with UNDP and United Nations Drug and Crime Combating. Whereas MOU as such has not been concluded with any UN organization by BIMSTEC. However, BIMSTEC do carry timely consultation with different UN organizations. For an instance, BIMSTEC in 2017 concluded a consultation with UN resident coordinator in Bangladesh to discuss the possible coordination. It also carried out consultation with the UN Regional Center for Peace and Disarmament to discuss the possible coordination for the implementation of UN Security Council Resolution 1540, and it has also included UN's principle in the declaration. For an example, the fourth BIMSTEC Summit Declaration affirms the UN's rule-based international trading system. Most importantly, if we are to see the mechanism for CSO access, SRG has mandated different mechanisms like SRG Law, SRG University, South Asian Federation of University Women, South Asian Free Media Association, and most importantly, People's SRG, which has not formally been recognized by SRG, but has been recognized on a de facto basis. However, in terms of BIMSTEC, there is no such separate mechanism, but BIMSTEC has somehow ensured the participation of CSOs in different consultation role. The role of CSOs in SRG is mostly consultation role. They do organize People's SRG and submit the declaration to the government through People's SRG. In BIMSTEC, the CSO's role is mostly consultation role in policy making. And in terms of Asian CSOs participation, the collective Asian CSO participation engagement can be seen in People's SRG. For example, Forum Asia do participate in the People's SRG programs. However, there is no separate mechanism as such in BIMSTEC for to ensure the CSOs participation, exclusive CSOs participation like SRG. To analyzing the situation of CSOs, despite all the hurdles, the civil societies of South Asia, despite no room for formal engagement with SRG official process, has continued not only to advocate for peace and amity in the region, but has also but also to recommend measures to strengthen SRG, taking cue from the success story of ASEAN and European Union. The SRG civil societies is a robust and enthusiastic group of people from every profession that has time and again demanded that SRG must become flexible alliance that is effective and efficient. SRG has also, as mentioned earlier, maintained MOU with a number of UN agencies such as UNICEF, UNDP, UNDCP, UNESCAP on various fronts, and has created a number of forums where CSOs may have an opportunity to indirectly engage in SRG. So experts have underscored the need to revitalize SRG to tackle poverty and related security risk in South Asia in order to successfully attain the Sustainable Development Goals. The community of academics and civil society organizations, women leaders, NGOs representatives, and media person are an illustrious community with shared values, championing democracy, peace, freedom, and greater economic integration. And series of People's SRG organized around the SRG Summit aims to promote greater awareness about SRG, share experiences and lessons learned from other regional organizations, promote greater interaction among people, and encourage wide range of participation of civil societies in SRG activities. So in terms of BIMSTEC, there is hardly any room for CSOs engagement with BIMSTEC process, and it largely works in the isolation from public domain without bottom-up approach in selecting the agenda to ensure more participation from private sectors and civil society at large. And in terms of ASEM, although ASEM leader pledged to at their summit in 2006 to better involve social partners in its organizational dialogue process. There is little say of CSOs from South Asia in ASEAN, since only 3 countries, including Bangladesh, Pakistan, and India, are member of ASEAN. So this brings me to the end of my presentation. If you have any suggestions or any recommendations, all the suggestions and recommendations are heartily welcomed. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to present our research findings.